Hola, chicos. How's everybody? Happy hump day on a Wednesday, even though we've only had 2 days this week. I don't know about you, but this week is like slow, odd. I don't know. So I have one kid out of school as of last Friday, another kid that goes through this Friday. That's fine. And then summer hits, right? All these parents at school are like, oh, can't wait for summer. What are you guys doing? This is going to be so great. I start sweating, okay? So not only am I a single parent, I want to keep my kids busy in the summer. It's very stressful. I feel like a party planner. I don't like it. So, yeah. Oh, yay for summer. Yeah, not so much. All right. What are we going to talk about? I have a couple of things. But what is one of my favorite words that we always talk about? And no, it's not the F-bomb. I use it a lot, but that's not it. All right, I'm going to give you a hint. It starts with a T, ends with an S. It has Tariff in the middle. Tariffs! All right, so since we spoke last, what has happened? I would say a lot of the same, right? Trump has made a lot of comments about increasing tariffs, decreasing tariffs. We're having conversations. All these people are coming to the table. No, we're not. Let's do that. Excuse me, it's all over the place. That's what we're used to, right? And the market is trading, equity markets are trading on that, and bond markets for the most part. It gets tiring, right? Because when I invest my money, it doesn't even matter. Like if I'm talking about stocks, if I'm looking at refinancing my home loan and I need to look at mortgage rates, buying a car, my disposable income, when I analyze how things are going, I don't look at Truth Social messages. It's just not what I do. I mean, I'm like, call me a nerd or like, I don't know, traditional person, but it's like, I want to see how big industrial companies are doing, consumer-facing companies are doing. I want to see how much people are spending. I want to see facts on inflation, right? But that is not really how the market is trading now, so it makes it a little difficult for people like you and me. Here's a little nerdy tidbit for you. So, the equity markets, do you know that roughly 60-odd% of the trading activities, probably more now, is actually done by computers on probably 1/1000th of a second, set up with these crazy-ass algorithms. So, keep that in mind, and especially in this market, when you are going in, if you are, buying or selling stocks, you know when you see a stock price go up, down, like 1/100th of a penny or 1,000th or whatever, I guarantee you almost vast majority of that are computers just boom, 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 boom. Limit this, limit that. Here's the rule. We got it. Got to do this, buy this, sell this. It's so fast. So, if you want to day trade, not what I do. Not easy. Okay, let's get back on track. Tariffs. That's one of the things I want to talk about. So, one of the big things that happened is, I believe it was over the weekend, Trump said, you know what, I'm going to put a 50% tariff on everything out of Europe, and there's no negotiation. And again, these things are always announced like on a Friday night, on a weekend. You know, you can't really respond in terms of the equity markets. Well, you know, that lasted maybe 72 hours, right? I mean, it's like, I'm going to push it to July 9th. I mean, so that was the reason, I don't know, it must have been yesterday, because the markets were open on Monday. The market went up like 700 or 800 points. It's just he said, I'm going to delay this. So there's a lot of punting, right? And by punting down the road, I mean, we're not solving anything. He's not solving the tariff issue. He's making announcements, yes, no, punting it out later to deal with it later. So, we're going to be talking about it for a while. But what have companies started to say? So, March quarter, obviously over. We usually start getting earnings announcements April, late April, May. So they're all being asked, how are all these tariffs affecting your business? Because we talked about global supply chains, right? Cars made in America, well, they're finished here. I would say a lot of the parts are probably not from here. Same with computers. We've talked about this. iPhones. You go to where it's most economical to get the parts so that you can provide the end consumer with the most cost-effective product, right? So they're all being asked, how are these affecting you? What are you doing? Are you passing the prices on to consumers? The vast majority are saying, you know what, yeah, I am. Macy's CEO today just said, companies are going to be, and it wasn't just Macy's, companies in general, they're going to pass that tariff extra, if you will, on to consumers as soon as it starts hitting that company's margins. Remember margins, right? The revenue that comes in minus the costs. If that cost number goes up, margins are in the middle, it's going to get squeezed, right? Companies aren't going to do that. And so who was the first company, one of the first companies to come out and say, we're going to raise prices? It was Walmart. And it was a huge, I would say, blow to the administration in terms of how these, that's my dog with the squeaky toy. Great timing. I'm going to talk right through it. How these companies are going to react. As a reminder, nerdy fact, Walmart is the largest single employer in the world. So this is a gigantic company. Tons of people buy their groceries from there. Tons of people get their home goods from there. This is like a behemoth. And for them to say in their words that these tariffs are, quote, too high, unquote, and we're going to have to pass it on, because we're a retailer. Our margins, they're already really thin as a retailer. We can't afford to do this. We're not going to go negative on profits and margins just because. Well, what was the response from the administration? Walmart, just eat the tariffs. If you're seeing a video, you're seeing me look like I just chewed on a lemon, which I actually used to do as a baby, which is weird. But yeah, like that sour face. Like, they're not going to eat it. Give me a break. So who else came out? Mattel. Toy prices are going to go up. What did Trump say? Well, I'm just going to put 100% tariff on Mattel's toys then. Well, that doesn't help either, because as we've educated ourselves on tariffs go up, consumers pay more. Doesn't really help. Best Buy, Nintendo. Nintendo actually postponed the launch of its Switch 2 because they didn't know what they were going to charge for it. They couldn't calculate how much everything was going to be as an input. They did finally announce the pre-launch or go ahead with it at the same price, $450. Not in this house. But they did say the accessories are probably going to be a lot more money. PlayStation, my favorite. I call it Temu. I know it's Temu. They started increasing prices early on, right? In April. For them, right, and any other big retailer bringing stuff in from China, for a while, a long while, they were able to take advantage of, remember that thing called the de minimis exemption? If you don't, I'll remind you. So any good that comes in that has a value of less than $800, just bring it on in. No tariffs. Was it to be nice to China? Not necessarily. It was to speed up the process of goods coming in. Can you imagine if every pen, I can't show you all the stuff I have on my desk, every little trinket, every little toy, everything, they had to calculate the value of and then put a tariff on it, it would halt supplies. But anyway, the administration pulled away that de minimis exemption, and so all these, like Temu and folks, were rushing to get as much stuff in as they could, and now they've slowed down. We talked about shipping containers, that kind of thing. What other companies have announced that these tariffs are going to affect prices? I'm just going to give you a list. This isn't everybody, but it's to make a point. Ford, Subaru, Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble is one of the largest diversified industrial companies in the world. It makes things that you and I use every day. Think of Tide, when you wash your clothes, Pampers, diapers. Who else? Stanley Black & Decker, Adidas, Macy's. The list goes on and on. So when I read these names, I think, who is this going to hit? Which consumers are going to be impacted the most by these tariffs, right? Well, who shops at these places? It's going to be lower and middle class, right? So all of a sudden, let's say your grocery bill's $100, right, at Walmart. And all of a sudden, what used to be $50 is now $65. So that delta, nerdy word for difference, right, is less. Meaning, when I give someone my $100 bill, I wish I had a $100 bill, $100 bill, and now I get $35 back instead of $50, I have less money to spend on other things. So this, I don't like to use the word trickle through, but this flows through a lot of other things. So if I have less money to spend, I'm not going to buy this, I'm not going to buy that, I might not go. Guys, I'm not talking about, going on a $20,000 a night vacation spree to Bali. And by the way, if you can do that, hook me up because, and I don't want to pay. It's going to be on you. I'm talking about nuts and bolts, guys. I'm talking about people who need diapers, formula, bread, eggs, milk. These folks, the heartland, if you will, and the heart of what I would call the classes of society. But then you say, Amy, we all know, maybe we don't, but we all know that the upper class, the very wealthy, account for the vast majority of consumer spend in the country. I'm not going to argue with that. That's totally true, right? But also think about the goods that they buy, right? Like, I'm not talking about private planes. I'm not talking about expensive vacations. That's fine. So in the aggregate, what they spend, it could be more of the total. But that's not really my point. My point is that if you look at these companies and who they're going to impact the most, it's going to be the people that need the money the most. So it's going to be a struggle for a lot of people in that lower middle class bracket. And, I'd like to say that, we see some light at the end of the tunnel, but how can we when everything continues to get punted? Okay? That's my first point. And one kind of random nerdy thing, which I like little nerdy facts. So we talked about the value of a good coming into the country being tariffed or taxed, right? What value do they use? So when an iPhone comes in, is it what they're going to charge us? $900, $1,200? There's this small little loophole. And I don't know how long they're going to allow it. But it's called the first value. And so what it does, it's very time-consuming generally, but what it is it causes these importers and companies to really track where their product has been over time because it will greatly benefit them in the tariffs that they are charged. So let's say someone brings in a phone. First value. If they know, and they should, the value that they originally paid the first time in their whole process, right, of design, manufacture, all that kind of thing, but a final product. So let's say that they bought it from the assembler for $275. I don't know, I'm making up a number. And they're going to sell it to us for $900. When they bring that product, when that product comes through our borders, it's not taxed at $900 or the tariff. They can legally show the value as $275. So that's the next thing now that a lot of companies are doing, is using that first value rule. We'll see how long it's in existence for. Who knows? Nerdy fact. Another thing, two more things. Mortgage rates. So I think it was last week, the mortgage rate almost hit 7%. And you guys, historically, everyone's like, oh my God, that's so high. That's so high. COVID times it was near zero. Well, yeah, because they had to stimulate the economy, right? They wanted 7%. If you look back even like 50 years, that's not that high. It still sucks, right? If you're buying a new home, or you need to refinance because maybe you're refinancing from a 2% to a 7%. But it's affected that as well. And what we saw in terms of the housing numbers was a slight decline. It was like less than 5% of the units sold. Quite a few more in inventory, so they didn't sell, but they kept them for sale. So we'll see where that goes. And the last thing I want to say is, there's always this tit for tat between Trump and someone, right? Right now, it seems to be Jerome Powell still. One of the people, including he also is, trying to sabotage Apple and charge them a tariff. But anyway, Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell spoke more recently at a pre-ceremony event at, I think it was Princeton. And he very clearly was talking about the separation of powers, but also doing the right thing. And, you know, I think about a life lesson, right? If my kids were here, I'd be like, guys, life lesson. And they'd be like, come on, Mom, why do you always have to teach us stuff? Why? Because it's important. My father always used to tell me, take the high road, right? So no matter how someone else behaves, you don't need to sink down to their level. Take the high road and do the right thing. So it reminded me of him because here's the quote that I'm going to end on. And it's super important. Think about it. Because in these times that we're in, I just think it's important. It's something that, you know, my father would have said to me, that I would like to pass on to my kids. And I think it's a good statement. So here it is. At the end of the day, your integrity is all you have. Guard it carefully. Okay, folks, I'm going to leave you with that. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We're almost done with May. I hope you have a great summer. Hope you have all your party planning done for your kids. Enjoy. Thanks for all the support. Hopefully I'll be back soon to give you some more little life lessons and stuff on the markets. But again, thanks for all the support. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks for the comments. Appreciate it. Take care, guys. Bye.